Počitovani naši gledači, dear listeners, dear watchers and audience of the In Focus with Silvana Pavlovska YouTube channel, welcome to this channel. Today is my immense pleasure to be speaking with Professor Biljana Vankovska, who is our guest on this program. And this indeed is a very special interview which I am conducting with her. The same very important, some of the very important, I should say, current events that are taking place in different parts of the world. That's what we are going to be talking about. So, a warm welcome to you, Professor Vankovska.
Hello, greetings to your audience, and thank you for the invitation. It's always pleasure.
It's my pleasure indeed. Now, this program, for those of you who are joining us, is broadcast from Melbourne, Australia. And this time, this interview is being conducted in English so that we can reach a wider audience and listeners. Now, uh, you are now in retirement, as it were, from your usual work where you were a professor at the University of St. Cyril and Methodius. So you are retired professor, but you are active despite that retirement. It doesn't seem that, you stopped contributing to society, and not just within Macedonia, but also, broadly speaking. And we will be talking about that broad aspect. You're a board member of the Transnational Foundation for Peace and Future Research from Lund, Sweden. So I recall our very first and last interview was last year, around about 24th of August, 2024. So it's been some time now, hasn't it? It's more than 12 months, and we are overdue. A lot has happened, and I'm very interested. I'm sure my audience is also interested in listening to you, especially because recently you did attend an international conference in China, in the Republic of China, where you presented a paper titled From Tina to Tata. What China reveals about what is it? The Europe's crisis of imagination. I think that's the title of your paper, is it not?
Let me first thank you for the kind introduction. Yes, indeed, it has been quite a while, and within more than a year, dramatic changes took place in my life. So there is a joke. If I was only tired before, now I'm retired, meaning that I'm really going on with my activities as if nothing happened formally. Even more than that, I think that I started from the 1st of October a new page of my life. And it started in the best possible way with traveling, a lot of traveling. Not only China was only the last one. So within a couple of months, I was in Russia, in Turkey, and twice in China. I took part in very interesting, very significant events. Here, I would just mention one that is particularly important for me personally, and I believe it is important for the global civil society. That is the Gaza Tribunal, a very special event that took place in Istanbul in October, where I was a part of the jury of conscience. I was really honored to be one of the 6 people selected to speak about what's going on in Gaza and actually to witness documents, testimonies, and everything that is surrounding this tragedy. My trip to China was twofold. Actually, I took part at two conferences, and even though I was twice before in China last year and visited some other places in this huge country,
Mhm.
now I had the opportunity to see the most important or the megalopolises of Shanghai and Beijing.
Mhm.
So these were, let's say, completely different events organized by different organizations and academic institutions, but both were very similar in terms of bringing together people from all around the world, I would say.
Mhm.
So now, as we are somehow suffering from claustrophobia here in the Balkans.
Mm.
You know, we are
Yes.
so much pressured and focused West, EU, Brussels, Washington. It is really a refreshment to go on the other side of the planet in order to meet the world, to meet the
Yes.
global majority.
Yes.
And you cited the title of my presentation, which is actually a modified article that I wrote after the conference
Mm.
with idea to make it available for the wider audience in the form of my commentary
Yes.
of what was said or
Yes.
what I said there.
Yes, because you presented without looking at your script. Uh,
I
you
completely
you
hate
didn't refer to
scripts.
your.
Usually, the organizers, and that is for practical reasons, they prefer to have written script
Sure.
for the interpreters to
Mm.
have easier job, to make
Of
their
course.
lives easier. Because, for example, at the Shanghai conference, there was interpretation in 7 languages. Can you
Wow.
imagine that
Simultaneous.
scope? Simultaneous in all
Much
these
difficult.
cabins. So
Yes.
people
Mm.
had really hard time with a lot of panelists, people speaking different languages. So it is much easier for them to go through the script. But I am a little bit not not following discipline always, and I got inspired. Actually, I
Mm.
listened to the
Mm.
people that speak before me, so
Yes.
I get their thoughts and try to get into the story, into the debate.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, I decided, no, I cannot read. I mean, I've never, my students could testify that I'm speaking the truth. I never, ever went into my classroom to read something,
Yes.
except if it's a quotation of something
Sure.
from a book or
Sure.
other people works. So it was really spontaneous because the atmosphere was inspirational. The audience, when you see people dressed in various colors,
Mm.
because we're living in a colorful world.
Yes.
Unfortunately, seen from the West, from where probably I come from now, formally, we are NATO, I don't know how to put it. The world looks rather gray, rather grim, rather
Mm.
black and white, to
Mm.
put it. So all of a sudden, you see how colorful is the
Yes.
world. How, as I mentioned, languages, cultures, dress
Races.
codes,
Yes. Yes.
races,
Yes.
everything. So
Yes.
that gives you this inspirational impetus to speak to the world. So you
Mm.
try to make your presentation understandable to many people, not to a selected group that thinks, within some limits and borders. So yeah, it was a very exciting experience. And what makes me very happy is that it echoed, it reached the audience. So as soon
Hmm.
as I finished my presentations, both in Shanghai and Beijing, happened the same thing. People were coming immediately, WeChat application is the one that is
China.
mostly used there for getting in touch. So people were coming with their mobiles, let's connect on WeChat and stay in touch.
Beautiful.
So already invitations from other parts of the world are coming. For example, I'm very excited about the one that came from Tehran, from
Mm-hmm.
Iran. It is a
Mm-hmm.
country that is a part of my dream destinations. That even though it is a dramatic historical moment for the country, still it is something that was always on my wish list. So probably next year will be as dynamic as my last few months. So I'm looking
Mm.
forward to it.
Yes. I understand, as you say, the presentation you gave spontaneously, that did touch a lot of people's hearts. And there was meaning to what you were talking about, especially you as a person, as an academic coming from a very small country in Eastern Europe, we call it, not Western or Balkans, whatever labels others wish to give it. We do not use those. They're not appropriate, in fact. But coming from a small country where many people in the world haven't even heard about Macedonia, and when you do say Macedonia, oh, well, is that part of that? No, no, it's not. It's separate. I'm always having to correct people. No, no. So they would have been impressed, and you had some commentary from some of the people that actually spoke to you and gave you their feedback. In your paper, which you've published for Substack on your presentation, you refer to a Greek gentleman or academic who made some comments. Can you share those with us, please?
Yeah, when you are surrounded by people from so many countries, we learn about geography, of course. Our country is so small, tiny, and of course, this confusion about the name that I always insist if possible, to remain only Macedonia next on my name tag. It is still a battle over the name, but I was happy that in Shanghai I was surrounded by, I'll be honest to say, left-wingers from all around the world, from Latin America to Africa and China and the rest of the world.
Mhm.
So I was from Macedonia, introduced as someone from Macedonia.
Excellent.
And the gentleman you mentioned, the Greek colleague,
Mhm.
is someone who took part in the Beijing conference.
Mhm.
And I was not aware that I'm saying something spectacular. To be honest, I thought that the general topic was Belt and Road Initiative,
Yes.
high development dimension of this initiative. So they're moving from quantity to quality
Quality. Yes.
development. So
Yes.
so people were sharing experiences how the Belt and Road initiative had impact on their countries, societies, or plans, or I had nothing to share from Macedonia because China is somehow pushed aside,
Mhm.
or not forbidden topic, but not so popular, let's put it. So that's why I decided to speak more on conceptual terms. And I made a comparison between what is the difference when we say that European enlargement is something that is very good, that is a peace project, when you get together countries, economies, cultures. You build this infrastructure of various forms of cooperation, and that is always a good story, like
Yes.
a peace project. On
Yes.
the other hand, whenever from the western part of the world it is referred to China, there is some sort of prejudices and stereotypes, and even I would say not very friendly rhetoric about the Asian giant that is, trying with their imperialist ideas to occupy the world. How? By building bridges, fast railroads and
Transport.
infrastructure, building
Yes.
hospitals, schools in Africa, particularly elsewhere. So I try to speak about the double standards, and my basic premise was that European Union is not a peace project anymore. Unfortunately, it turned into a militarized and very potentially dangerous place on earth. And while the West is still caught into this mantra and matrix of TINA principle, which means there is no alternative. What we say is the only alternative. So whether it is economics, development, culture, whatever, that is the right one. What others say is no, no. So
So
you
either you are with
better
us
stay.
or you are not with us. Hmm?
Exactly, which is rather Stalinist and autocratic
Yes.
mantra, I would say. And
Yes.
on the other hand, talking about what China is doing with this Belt and Road Initiative, not always very successfully or with the same, let's say, strategic successes, or there are problems on that way, but there is no bad intention and there is no conditionality. There is no blackmail. China is not blackmailing anyone. They're offering possibilities to cooperate. So if country wants, they're welcome. Otherwise, they will find that the world is really big one. So there is this double standard
Hmm.
approach, and
Yes.
especially the youngsters, the younger generations in our country, in Macedonia, are already, closer to TINA
Hmm.
principle,
Hmm.
while TATA looks for them very complex because it means there are thousand alternatives. Because,
TATA. Mm-hmm.
yeah, TATA, meaning we do not need to stick to only one truth, one path, one way of thinking or reasoning or seeing the world. And what bothers me is that in this Tina cage that we are caught
Hmm.
in,
Hmm.
we are enforced to look at the rest of the world as something hostile, which is
Hmm.
absolutely fake presentation of the world. The
Hmm.
world has its own problems, own ideas, different forms of association, of regional integrational forms,
Yes.
global. So there is a dialogue, which is, as I said, going sometimes faster, sometimes slower, back and forth. It is a dramatic process, of course. And I usually here quote my favorite Marxist theoretician Antonio Gramsci with his statement from many years ago before the Second World War, when he said, "This is a time when the old order is dying and the new one is struggling to be born. This is a time of monsters." It was a warning. We're living in this new historical moment when something similar is happening, and I'm very much concerned that it could end in the worst possible way. That's why my public engagement. As you
Mm,
mentioned, I'm retired. I could
mm.
just say goodbye. I did my job as good as I could, and now I can enjoy my life quietly.
Well,
Uh,
Biljana, you
but
dedicated many decades at the university
yeah,
there, and your contribution speaks for itself through your various publications that you've published, the lectures that you have presented in other countries as well as in Macedonia, the conferences you've attended where you've contributed, particularly in this area of peace in the
it is
world.
true that
I want to validate
I'm.
that and acknowledge that on behalf of
Thank you
our
so much.
audience. It's not
Thank
often
you
that
so
we,
much.
talk about ourselves. It's our deeds, I should say, that, show. But maybe not everyone can see or know of those deeds. So it's my duty
Uh,
to
yes, thank you.
remind
I
our
appreciate
audience.
it.
Yes, you're
But
most
it is,
welcome.
I would still stick to one word that you just mentioned, which is
Hmm.
the most important one in the world right now, peace. You
Mm.
mentioned the word peace
Yes,
and referred to me as a peace researcher. It is exactly what I'm trying to introduce.
yes.
No matter if I'm talking in Shanghai or in Sochi or in Istanbul or wherever I'm invited, I try to introduce a perspective of peace studies, which is an academic field, or maybe I should use the past terms, past tense used to be,
Hmm.
because it's dying, because
Hmm.
these geostrategic analysis and forms of academic thinking, they are pushing aside the way, whenever you mention genuine peace perspective, they look at you as if you are a naive person or utopian thinking or something that is almost impossible.
Showing
So
disrespect because they don't want to talk about it or acknowledge it, let alone talk about it. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve to be talked about.
absolutely, even and now more than ever. I
Yes.
think it is, but that was appreciated by my colleagues, as I mentioned, including let us get back to the Greek colleague who
Mm-hmm.
teaches in France, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at the table during the dinner, he approached me and he said, I hope the audience would not take this as that I'm showing off here. No, he said, this was the presentation of the day. You
Yes.
said
Marvelous.
exactly what most of us here thought, but didn't dare say.
Didn't have the
And
courage.
I was surprised. Why would we be, self-restricted, self-censorship, and being afraid to speak truth out?
Hmm.
So I thank him, and then we continued our conversation with other colleagues as well. So it is very interesting to see people from there were people from European Union as well, from
Mm-hmm.
countries, not
Mm-hmm.
only the Greek colleague. So they confirmed everything I said about their state in which European Union is now, led by Ursula von der Leyen and Kaja Kallas and a bunch
Yes.
of people who have no clue
Yes.
about the global developments and where they
Right.
are pushing Europe and our young generations.
Indeed.
So we shared, at the same time concerns about our part of the world, and we shared amazement by where China is going and how
Hmm.
it is working, first of all, at home. And I may share an anecdote that took place out of the conference hall.
Hmm.
I had the pleasure to meet a very strong, powerful woman, a very active fighter from Georgia. And
Okay.
she gave me a tour in Shanghai, but not in the tourist area, these high skyscrapers and this central area where everybody takes photo of themselves. No, she took me in these normal, let's say, parts, residential areas, some things that tourists would not usually go to see. So she showed me ordinary park
Hmm.
uh, on a Sunday
Hmm.
where normal everyday people were spending that time. It was a nice day. So we were looking around. Then we visited a community center, so-called community center. It is something that we used to have during the communist times. We called them местные заjednice or
Yes.
local communities. Like how shall we translate that? Places where people can meet
Yes.
whenever they want or
Yes.
whenever they need some assistance, be that health assistance or educational tools for the children, toys, playing the social games, chess or library or amazing,
Mhm.
amazing. And we were talking about how Chinese people live in that country and
Yes.
why are they satisfied with their government, even though they don't have multi-party democracy and
Mhm.
all this Western mantra, how democratic
Narrative.
society
Yes.
should look
Hmm.
like. And at the end, with the sadness and some melancholy, even we concluded this is how happy people look like. When
Mm.
you just look around and you see the faces, they may not be, the richest people, but they live decent lives and they're relieved from stress. They're hardworking people,
Mm.
but they have the feeling that they are community.
Yes. Part
It
of a
is what we
collective. Mm.
miss in our country. We are on the edge of dividing ourselves, even in the family
Units. Mm.
circles, units. Yes.
Mm.
So it is something that we would like to see really more on our streets,
Well,
on our
then
parks. We don't have
certainly
parks after all.
it's been lost. It doesn't mean it cannot return because
Absolutely.
Macedonian
Absolutely.
culture being very traditional, where the
Absolutely.
collective plays a major role, not I as an individual, which is
Exactly.
a Western,
Exactly.
concept. So these things are currently the way they are, but it doesn't mean that they cannot go back to what has been proven for centuries, if not a millennia, to be working very well and has certainly helped the people, the Macedonian people, to still exist and continue to exist in
That is the only
society
way. Yeah,
and a
I
very
agree.
important, culture in globally speaking. I'm interested to know about the Belt and Road Initiative a little bit more, and how is that initiative? Has it produced any spectacular results in Macedonia?
Oh no, not in Macedonia. Macedonia, even when it started, there were a lot of obstacles, and I would say that the peak or the most intensive period was during the government of Nikola Gruevski, who, no matter what we think about him and his leadership in other aspects of our political or economic life, I'm free to admit that he had that sense that the world is changing, that
Yes.
Macedonia cannot be hostage of the continuous Western blackmails, and not to talk about the neighbors that total insist on some nonsensical demands that we give up our identity and
Sovereignty.
sovereignty, absolutely, in
Yes.
all aspects of the
Mm.
meaning of that word, including the Constitution.
Yes,
So
including the Constitution. Yes.
Gruevsky was in a way the most aware of these possibilities
Hmm.
to take, let's put it, to take advantage. Uh, the things turned not as he wanted and we maybe expected. Unfortunately, the new government is more talking about um, resilience
Yes.
from the foreign influences
Yes.
and the third power centers. Who are the third? Are they
Yes.
the enemies? Who are the enemies? And
Yes. Yes.
I'm very, very confused in this respect. They need to be more transparent. If they
Yes.
think that China or Russia or Iran or I don't know who else are enemies, then they should tell us to be aware, to take care, and to
Well,
do something. I mean, I
sorry.
don't buy
Yeah.
the story,
I'll
definitely.
interrupt you here for a moment. Last night, I actually listened to the news on Alpha TV in Macedonian about the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Mutsunski, uh, and before representatives from embassies, USA, etc., and others,
I think
and
it was British
journalists.
embassy,
Hmm? British
British
Embassy.
embassy.
British
Yes,
Embassy and journalists, they've produced some sort of a publication to be giving guidance to journalists, how to combat this, according to them, misinformation or whatever they're calling it. In fact, this is ludicrous, for
it is. It
government
is.
to be telling this is clearly an American narrative that they are propagating, a European,
I don't
narrative.
care which narrative is, but I do know that this has nothing to do with freedom of thought, freedom of
Nothing to
belief,
do. Yes.
freedom of speech, of publications, of academic work. So they're actually legalizing censorship,
Mm, yes.
something that is against our constitution. Our constitution says
Yes.
censorship is forbidden. So
Yes.
they are through, as you rightly noticed, through foreign grants. It is the British
Yes.
initiative,
Yes.
but of course the Americans are not different. So
Yes.
I was you followed, as you said, this news last night, but I heard interview of our president of the republic given at the time when I was in China. So
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes on YouTube I find this. Um, um, so I watch these interviews later on quiet. She spoke the same language. There are a number of phrases or a framework of thinking that
Yes.
they all have accepted from the
Yes.
prime minister, foreign
Yes.
minister, the president of the republic. And yesterday, as you rightly mentioned, it was the director of a higher educational institution
Yes.
for media studies.
Mm-hmm.
And
For media
that
studies.
woman,
Yes. Yes.
yes, the director of that institution I know personally, and I respected her. I had high opinion of her, but probably the economic logic of getting grant or no, surviving or no,
Mm,
make
mm,
people do some things that
mm,
may not be quite in line with the personal beliefs. I don't know. I'm just trying to find excuse for that. But I'm sure that this is disastrous way to get on because talking Tina, Tata, this small world of ours that is based on paranoia, on
yes.
fear of seeing enemies everywhere around. The rest of the world, because I met people from Afghanistan to
Yes.
South Africa to Venezuela and Chile and Mexico and United States, of course, and so not to mention, so people think in different way. They want to communicate to get to know each other, and
Yes.
instead of making an enemy of someone you don't understand. Let's take the Russians. They
Yes.
are the bad guys now.
Mm.
Why won't we give opportunity to an intellectual, professor, whatever, journalist, to give their point of view, not to listen to what the Western media, recycle all the time. They're trying to invade, I don't know, the Europe and to do this and that. No, let's talk because there is no other way to get and find a way to peace.
Mm.
Only through dialogue. Only through
Indeed,
dialogue.
and talking about the truth rather than manipulating information or
Even if
editing
we
or
don't
censoring.
accept,
Yes.
our versions of telling the truth or the talking about the developments, at least we have to listen to each other.
Indeed.
We are living in time when diplomacy is forbidden,
Mm.
when diplomatic activities are limited to people that think the same. So it is like echo chamber.
Mm.
So
Mm.
we meet together, we share the same opinions, and we go home. So that is our truth. No, we have to open. So it is what I see. It is how I see my mission and going to places where other would not be afraid to accept invitation. So
Yes.
I'm ready to go to Tehran, to go to Moscow, to I'm going to China, often any country. I would like to see it with my own eyes.
Yes.
I will give you one example, which is relevant even today. Last year, I visited the further away place from Beijing, a province of Xinjiang.
Mm-hmm.
So it is this notorious place where allegedly genocide is taking place.
Uyghur people.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
I was there all alone. Nobody accompanied me. I was let to walk around, to see people, to go through the Grand Bazaar or museums or streets. So if genocide looks like that, then it's not such a bad thing. But when you see Gaza, it gives you a different
Mm.
idea of genocide.
Indeed.
Nevertheless, so this is a part of the Western propaganda against
Mm.
China.
Mm.
And whenever somebody mentioned these human rights problems in China, concentration camps, genocide, I say, have you been there? Have you seen that? Go. You
Mm.
can go freely without any special I don't know, paper given from the government or so. You can go as a tourist. And that
Yes.
Xinjiang province looks
Yes.
like Switzerland. It's so
Mm.
beautiful. It's so marvelous. You could explore it for days. And you see people from different ethnicities, different languages living together. It is a crossroad of the world. And I actually felt like at home because I felt these Eastern influences, pilaf.
Mm.
The food,
Mm-hmm.
pilaf is something that we cook at home. My mother used to do that whole life.
Yes.
So I tasted pilaf there. I said, "Oh my gosh, this is something that we share, that we have
Yes.
in common."
Yes.
The music,
Yes.
the folklore.
Yes.
So you see where the worlds crossed in the past, in the ancient times, and they crossed these
Yeah.
influences together. So
And
why not bring the world together instead of
yes.
closing into
Yes.
inimical camps that are fearing each other?
Oh,
Nowadays, why I'm mentioning this is
yes.
that the United States, actually the US State Department, issued a joint statement on human rights in China. That is available document. You can check it right now. On a joint statement, which means it is not on behalf only on United States. And then on the bottom, you find a list of states that support that joint statement.
Mhm.
Sadly, Macedonia is one of them. It
Doesn't
is like
support the statement. And the statement
support,
being,
being that Chinese are terrorizing people, doing genocide, discriminating, there is no democracy, that, horrible state of human rights.
without
What
any
I
evidence.
saw, without evidence, of course,
Mm,
it is
mm,
it is a part of this global shiftings, and
mm.
we don't have time to go into
We,
that.
yes, you
But
say,
why?
yes.
Is there anyone from the Macedonian government to explain to me why on earth Macedonia signed the joint statement about the state of human rights in a country that we do not really communicate with? Why our president doesn't go to Beijing to
Yes,
visit China, but she goes to
yes,
Montenegro?
yes.
And that is the further away she can reach, except for Macron, if he organizes something about the
No,
oceans
there
and
appears to
climate
be
change.
a clear bias towards one part of the world, so-called Western part of the
So,
world, which
so
is not really desirable because
no, they're
yes,
portraying the other parts of the world in a way that provokes wrong ideas
hmm,
for the people that would never go there. I was lucky to be there and to see it with my eyes and to see this development. Of course, that part of China had interethnic problems, terrorism, terrorist
yes,
attacks some 10 years ago. So they went through some troubles. But
yes,
after all, we went through troubles in 2001. Let's not forget that.
yes, major, major.
And unlike Macedonia, China is investing in that. It's a building boom, construction boom,
Yes,
employment boom.
yes,
That province is booming
yes,
with high development.
yes.
Here we are literally pushing away our young children to go away as soon as possible.
Well, let's hope
So
that activity will cease to exist. Pressure certainly needs to be applied more and more on the current government to bring about initiatives, real initiatives, initiatives on the ground that are going to stop the leaving of young people from Macedonia and create some job opportunities for them. It appears to be not listening to some sections of the community, and it appears to be supporting others. So the priorities seem to be skewed. They're not exactly
no,
the
no.
way the society should really develop itself. Now, I'm just thinking loudly, Biljana. By the way, we're talking to Biljana Vankovska, a retired professor from the University of Saint Cyril and Methodius. And we're talking about lots of things. So I encourage you to listen to this video from the beginning to the end. I'm thinking loudly and I'm thinking Macedonia could play a really, really a major role in being non-aligned, non-political, developing its own economy and infrastructure, creating jobs, creating, the manufacturing area, the land, the agricultural side of things, the wine producing, all of those things, and many other things for which it really, you cannot compare other countries with what Macedonia has to offer, in addition to tourism and so on and so forth. So, how, can this not be something that people can discuss, that the possibility of doing this rather than aligning with so-called cowboys of the current world, but no longer because they're quickly disappearing from the scene and have their own problems. And those in Europe, you mentioned before, those from Brussels, UK, problems in UK, Germany, France, every day people are protesting, whether they're farmers or whether they're other people. And so much drugs being infiltrated in the country and people who are unwell in hospitals and crime. stealing the jewels from the most famous gallery in the world, and they cannot find them yet. They've caught some people. This is, laughable if it wasn't so serious. So, where do you see things develop from here on a global scale? But also within Macedonia, I'm interested in Macedonia. Can the people themselves, and I'm not just talking about Macedonian people, but all those who reside in Macedonia, who we refer to as the minorities or the ethnic groups, what should they do? And especially those of us who are living abroad in other countries. We've been here for decades. And Macedonia is in our hearts, no matter what other people say. What can we do? How can we influence? Because, frankly speaking, those of us in other parts of the world have had enough of these governments, whether they're, what do you call them, VMRO, DPMNE, or the Social Democrats or whoever they are. We have a similar thing in Australia. It's either the coalition, the Liberals and the Nationals, the ultra conservatives, or Labor. But when you look at them at the end of the day, there's hardly any difference. And they are all answerable to the so-called globalists there. We will not go into that this time. We can perhaps talk about it next time. I'm interested to know what your view is. Are you positive? Can, some things develop slowly but surely for the betterment of humanity? I know this was a
Um,
long.
yeah, this was a lot, and we are probably approaching the end of our talk. So you gave me really a hard job here to think. But in my own defense, I can now mention another role I took on my shoulders,
Mhm,
even though with a dose of skepticism, and I was not sure that I'm doing the right thing. Last year, when I became a presidential candidate,
mhm.
so
Yes.
I took all possible roles an individual can take
Opportunities.
on.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
to influence, to apart from my academic work and achievements, I've always been a public intellectual, someone
Yes.
who was present, outspoken on the social media, writing columns for 25 years, and at the end I was censored by the chief editor, and I said goodbye from the main
Mhm.
newspaper in Macedonia.
Yeah.
So now I'm writing in this alternative platform, and on the top of that,
Substrate.
I
Yes.
even took this risk to go into the political arena. I
Yes.
did not go because of a personal ambition, because of course I was the underdog, I was the
Mm.
outcast, I had no chance. My only chance was to present a vision of a different Macedonia, of a
Mm.
Macedonia you just described. So
Yes.
in my view, in my electoral program that is still available, if somebody tries to search my name and this context, will find my electoral program.
Yes.
So I offered even some vision and moves, concrete
Yes.
moves. For
Yeah.
example, neutrality.
Yes.
Neutral status of the country
Yes.
out of NATO,
Yes.
not giving 5% of GDP for
Yes.
military armament and wars elsewhere. So, yes, of course, I had ideas about the diaspora because sadly, I'm a mother of three and none of them lives in Macedonia. So you
Mm.
can imagine how painful it is to be a mother and to have your family spread around the world.
Mm.
So I would, of course, be so happy to use their capacities, their best potentials, and invest in their homeland. My oldest daughter is a tenured professor at the University of Ottawa. So yes, I'm proud as a mother, as a Macedonian. I would say we lost
Mm.
capital, human capital.
Mm.
Not because she is my daughter. I'm just saying her official position, and she's really top in her field.
Mm.
The other two doing also their job. So we have so much potential that is spread all over the world. We need to find a way to make some synergy.
Yes.
You ask me if I'm optimist or pessimist. I'm usually pessimist, but my leftist friends say that defeatism and pessimism are counter-revolutionary. So if I want to change the world, I need to believe into
Yes.
a better world, of
Yes.
course. So that's why actually I'm going to these other places of the world where you fill in your batteries, your ideas. You get other people experiences. If China eradicated poverty on such a huge level, at least we can learn how to make a more decent living for our people, for the pensioners, for the farmers, for the people who are actually living this beautiful land we have. They are humiliated in their position.
Mm.
It is humiliating here to be a worker, to be a farmer. So we do not know how to respect hard work.
Yes.
Unlike China, China
Unlike China.
respects,
Mm.
yeah, it
Mm.
is, everything is in hard work. So there are possibilities. Currently, I don't see any way out because this government just confirmed its legitimacy on the local elections
Mhm.
due
Yes.
to clientelism, keeping all the tools of power in their hands. So at
Mm.
this very moment, Macedonia is in the hands of the ruling coalition
Sure.
on the local level, executive, parliamentary, and the president of the republic.
Yes. Yes.
Everything is in their hands.
Yes. Yes.
So let's put the pressure
Mm.
and these hard questions on their shoulders
Yes.
because now they are responsible for delivering, not only
Yes.
being yes sayers to ambassadors to various officials from various parts of the world. They should think of their own people because
Yes.
the punishment will come. I don't want to, not punishment in terms of
The
violent,
consequences.
the consequences,
Yes.
exactly. So
Yes.
nothing
Yes.
goes without consequences.
Yes.
So let's hope that our people will learn a new lesson. That
Mm.
after a while they will try to shift and to move to another page, to
Mm.
try some different ideas and different actors, if you want,
Perhaps
on the political scene.
2026 will be a year of enlightenment for those who are at the helm in Macedonia and elsewhere in the world where peace will prevail or start
Let's
to
hope.
prevail
Yeah.
rather than the opposite. I want to thank you for representing Macedonia and the Macedonian people in China by presenting your paper. Uh, we are alive and kicking, as they say in the West, so called alive and kicking, and we have something to say, and people are listening, and they're listening to you, your voice. I am sure you will visit China again, and I want to thank you for today for giving me the time to speak with you on all of these matters and the opportunity to enlighten our audience about many things that they would not necessarily hear about or know about. So thank you so much, and I can assure you I'm not going to take as long next time to have another interview with you, and I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Silvana. It was really my pleasure because you also helped me because I'm now so full of impressions from, as I said, a few traumatic events I attended and countries I visited, world seen through different lenses. So it is a very good feeling to have someone to share with these impressions, these ideas, maybe all these will come and transform into concrete political moves and actions, bottom-up
Bottom
initiatives.
up.
I would
Yes.
like
Yes. Not
to
just
see
top
with
down.
our. So we are doing what we can. You from your side and me as your
Yes.
guest. Thank you
It's
so much
my
for the
pleasure,
opportunity.
and I'm looking forward to our next interview. We have been speaking with retired professor from the University of Cyril and Methodius, Professor Biljana Vankovska, who's also a member of the board of Transnational Foundation for Peace and Future Research from Lund, Sweden. May peace be with you and everyone you have connections with. So, looking forward to our next interview. Thank you so much and enjoy your day.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
Bye for now. And a good evening to you, Sasha Uzunov.
Hello, Silvana. Thank you for inviting me to your program.
You are most welcome. I We have spoken a few times for In Focus with Silvana
Mhm.
Pavlovska, and today I'm honored to have you, particularly because I've just finished an interview, special interview, by the way, with retired Professor Biljana Vankovska from St. Cyril and Methodius. She's also, she told me this evening, a board member of the Transnational Foundation for Peace and Future Research from
Yes.
Lund in Sweden. Um, you are fully aware, Sasha, that she recently came back from China, where she attended a conference in Beijing, a conference that was titled From Tina to Tata. What China actually, I just refer to my notes here as to the proper name of that conference. Anyway, um, hmm, my apology. I
That's
don't
okay.
seem to find it at the moment, but this was, yes, actually, I have got it in front of me. It was this conference in China was hosted by CASS. CASS stands for Institute for Russian, Eastern Europe, and Central Asian Studies,
Hmm.
where there were quite a few participants from all around the world. And we talked about her impressions at the conference. Now, she was immensely impressed with China
Hmm.
and was also grateful for the opportunity to present, although she presented, uh, her speech rather than referring to her printed copy of her speech
Hmm.
on this topic of from Tina to Tata, which
Hmm.
what China reveals about Europe's crisis of imagination. And she
Hmm.
talks about what this Tina means, what Tata means.
Okay.
So that was quite enlightening.
Hmm.
She represented Macedonia, in my view, and the people of Macedonia in China, where she was able to voice her as an academic, you know, her knowledge, her views on the current state of affairs around the world, and what she thinks ought to happen. She makes a comparison between the Tina and the Tata, what they all mean. Tina being practiced in the Western world, really related to the Belt and Road initiatives. And the other one is the opposite one, that is practiced in China and other countries like China.
Hmm.
So I've made a few notes here, and I'm interested to know what your perspective is. What's your angle? You are following events around the world, in Europe and other places, in Macedonia, of course. And
Hmm.
what is your perspective about, you know, first of all, Biljana Vankovska's visit to China, if you have any views, and
Hmm.
about these so-called initiatives that are going on, but they don't seem to have any impact in Macedonia. And we'll focus on Macedonia as well. So feel free to share your views with me, and thank you for joining me on In Focus with Silvana Pavlovska.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your program. Look, Professor Vankovska is a very well-known Macedonian academic. She has extraordinary
Speak up for me. Please
qualifications.
speak up for me. Please
You
speak up.
can't hear me?
Yes, that's better.
Can you hear me now?
That's much better. Thank you, Sasha.
That's okay. Look, thank you for having me on your program. Professor Vankovska is a very well-known Macedonian academic. She's got extraordinary experience and qualifications. I mean, I'm not at her level by any stretch of the imagination. So I can't speak to her visit to China or Russia. I mean, I've never been to Russia or China, but what I can sort of speak to is, the sort of various media images or portrayals of China here in the West, here in Australia, and
Yes.
in Macedonia. I mean, from what I've been able to analyze.
Mm-hmm.
China has always had a very positive relationship to Macedonia. There's no history of China ever invading Macedonia. I mean, Chinese civilization is 3,000 years old. It's one of the oldest continuous civilizations, along with India. Pioneering in science, medicine, technology, philosophy, government systems, Confucius, and so forth. So, the Chinese have been around a long time. There's obviously a lot that Westerners can learn from China, but unfortunately, China's sort of portrayed as some kind of evil giant out to sort of destroy the world. I mean, it's pure nonsense. I mean, and unfortunately, the same sort of type of scenario is being sort of played in Macedonia. Again, China has never had a negative view towards Macedonia. I mean, in 1978, the Chinese premier Hua Gaofeng, visited Skopje, Macedonia, which was then a republic within the Yugoslav Federation, and
Yes.
he's famous for saying that the Macedonians have a glorious revolutionary tradition as well as
Yes.
an ancient history. The Chinese overall have been very sympathetic to Macedonia. There's
Mm.
been there's no hidden agenda. They simply want good relations, and it's unfortunate that Macedonian politicians, and in all likelihood, are being pressured by Western embassies, the US, the UK, and the
UK.
EU, Germany,
Mm-hmm.
to sort of portray the Chinese as evil when the Chinese don't have an evil agenda. I mean, if I could sort of use those phrases.
Well, they don't seem to have a militarized agenda, do they?
No,
Whereas
I
the
mean,
European Commission, the European Union, has announced that they're going to form their own army, and all the member states of the European Union, 23 of them, have now got to pay, what was it, $23 billion in the
mhm.
next 3 years to militarize Europe because there's an alleged threat from somewhere. Where? What's
Well,
the
look,
evidence?
China, as I said, China has never invaded Macedonia. I mean, it's never
Yes,
invaded Australia. It's never invaded parts of the Asia Pacific region. I mean, during World War II, it was invaded by Japan. I mean, for China, the World War II started in the early 30s when parts of China, like Manchuria, were taken over by Imperial Japan. So the
yes,
uh, China's participation in World War II actually lasted longer than from 39 to 45. It goes back to the early 30s.
yes,
Um, so I sort of find it hard to believe that China poses a serious threat. I mean, for Macedonia, in 2001, right-wing Albanian neo-Nazi extremists who were
yes,
trained by the US invaded Macedonia. I mean,
yes,
China had nothing to do with it.
yes,
This is a well-known fact. I mean, the NLA, or an offshoot of the KLA, the Kosovo Liberation Army, was trained by the US. It was
yes,
armed by the US. It then
yes,
went supposedly rogue without the US knowing about it, and then sort of crossed the border into Macedonia and started a
mm,
war
mm,
in 2001. And
yes,
then the US and the EU flew to the Ukraine, right, when it was neutral in 2001, to cut off Ukraine's weapons supplies to Macedonia, which was fighting a war against Albanian neo-Nazi extremists.
yes,
So there's this two-faced behavior from the West, where
well,
on the
yes,
one hand it supports its proxies and arms them to the
yes,
teeth, but Macedonia, which has been a friend of the US, I mean, in 1999, Macedonia gave NATO, the EU, the US, the UK, Germany permission to set up base in Macedonia in order to invade Kosovo in 1999. And
mm,
as a reward, instead of saying thank you, they let loose, excuse me, they let loose Albanian neo-Nazi extremists led by Ali Ahmeti.
mm. I just mentioned to our audience that you're listening to In Focus with Silvana Pavlovska, and I'm talking to Sasha Uzunov, who's an independent journalist from Melbourne, Australia. Professor Vankovska also talked about double standards that exist there, which you've just, mentioned. And with this TINA initiative or principle,
Mm,
that is they're trying to tell people that there are no alternatives. You've got to be either for European Union or against European Union. Become a member. Uh, if you want to be part of the European Union, but they make it so hard for Macedonia to become a member because of all these concocted conditions that are illegal and illegitimate. So Professor Vankovska said that China does have its problems. However, they have no bad intentions as a country and as people, and they offer the possibility to cooperate with any country which wishes to cooperate with them. Um, and this TATA principle is means that we don't need to stick to one way of thinking, like the Tina thinking. We don't need to stick to that thinking. There are other ways of thinking because the Tina thinking or principle is like a cage. She used the word cage. You are in a
mm,
cage. And they look at the world, those who live in that cage, and maybe that also refers to us. We are in a cage, technically speaking, in Australia because we are closely aligned with the USA. And we
mm,
even had Black Friday, I don't know, for days on end, which has nothing to do with Australia and Australian culture. But
mm,
these people look at the rest of the world as a hostile world because of all the information that they're being fed that is not based on truth and it's not based on evidence. But she also mentioned that this is a time when the old order is dying. She was quoting Antonio Gramsci, I beg your pardon, who said, a Marxist, who said that this is a time when an old order is dying and a new one is slowly emerging. And she emphasized the word peace. Um, and she, as a peace researcher, shared with us that she wants to introduce a peace studies perspective whenever she talks about issues when she's visiting other countries. Yeah, and she's amazed with the way China is going and what they have achieved in
Mm.
a short period of time. Uh, Something else I was able to deduce from her was that Macedonia cannot be a hostage to the neighbors and the European Union or the UK, all these other, countries, the US, etc. So her impressions were very high from China, and she was very well received, very welcomed by the organizers of the conference and also those participants of the conference, and was complimented on her presentation. And this is very important to have a person, an academic of that caliber, to be able to represent the Macedonian country and its people in China, um, uh, at conferences of that caliber. So I acknowledged her and validated her for doing that. But she's also sat in Istanbul on this tribunal related to the Gaza genocide. She mentioned briefly. So she's seen all sorts of things go on, all kinds of documents and so on about that, and is very concerned about that. We didn't talk about that area very much, but she is involved in areas that are going to bring peace to the world and humanity as a whole. Please continue. I interrupted you.
Oh, thank you. Look, my area of expertise is not the Middle East, so I basically stay out of it. There are other people who know more about it. But getting back to the Balkans, I mean, you mentioned a very valid point, and I've written about it continuously. It's the double standards, the two-faced behavior, the hypocrisy of the EU. I mean, Greece, Bulgaria, have been able to get away with enormous blackmail towards Macedonia. I mean, Greece in 1995 was breaking. Greece is a member of NATO, of obviously the EU, United Nations, but in 1995, Greece was going against NATO. It
Mm,
was going against the UN and the EU in breaking sanctions against Milosevic's Serbia and
mhm,
aiding and abetting Milosevic and the Serbs in Bosnia. Now, Greece can be anti-Western and pro-Western simultaneously, can be pro-American, anti-American whenever it suits it. It doesn't get punished. There are no sanctions. It can get away with extraordinary blackmail. But if
mm,
Macedonians say, look, we don't want to change our name, or we want to do business with everyone, we're happy to do business with the US, EU, Britain, Germany, China, Russia, Ukraine, Congo,
mm,
Brazil, Nepal, whoever.
mm,
It's like the end of the world. It's like, hey, how dare you, how dare you do that? You have
mm,
to follow our orders. I mean, it's extraordinary arrogance and sort of neo-colonial behavior. I mean, it's outrageous.
mm,
Taking the Prespa agreement. I mean, you've Macedonia is forced to hand over its identity, its name, and its history to Greece, and the US has a US presidential executive order that if you question the Prespa Agreement, which in reality means if you question Macedonian history, if you claim to have a link to ancient Macedonia, that could be construed as undermining the Prespa Agreement. You could be put on a US blacklist. You could have
mm.
your assets frozen.
Ludicrous. Well,
You'd
that
be
was during the
declared,
Biden era.
yeah,
Mm,
uh, I mean that's outrageous.
mm,
Since when does the US have copyright on anyone else's history, especially Macedonian history? Bulgaria the same. I mean, Bulgaria can get away with Holocaust denial. It can get away with anti-Semitism. It can get away with fanatical anti-Macedonianism. It can make all sorts of demands, and the EU backs it. Again, Macedonia has to succumb to Bulgarian blackmail. I mean, it's extraordinary and breathtaking hypocrisy that I mean, it's not subtle. I mean, it's in your face.
Mm,
They sort of act as though it's not happening when it is, you know.
mm. Yes, we live in some interesting times, Sasha,
Mm.
where there's a lot of material to talk about, and having to talk about it and to prove to those who maybe they don't know, are ignorant of history, and maybe they do know, but they do things intentionally, deliberately, causing divisions amongst people to create wars because wars seem to or the benefit of wars suits them. And it's time and time again that this every time there is a war, there are sections of the community that benefit enormously. The benefits for those who brought in the Prespa Agreement, that illegitimate, illegal it's not a valid agreement because it hasn't even been rectified by the Republic of Greece. It hasn't been signed off. So all these things are going on in Macedonia on the assumption that, you've got to do this, you've got to do that because that's what Greece wanted. But Greece hasn't even acknowledged or agreed officially that it does accept that agreement, which is an interesting aspect. But the way having covered Professor Igoryanev's document on the Prespa agreement in my In Focus with Silvana Pavlovska YouTube channel, and I encourage our audience to listen to those programs. There are quite a few. We there is an assumption there that Macedonia has to, and they are putting that in place, changing the constitution, changing the flag, changing all sorts of things, and now they are being told to include some um, Bulgarians into the constitution. You say it's ludicrous. I think it's mad. The whole thing is mad, is it not?
Well, look, I mean, uh, there's no look. Minorities in Macedonia have enormous protection as it is.
Hmm.
Existing Macedonian law, as well as
Covers.
international conventions to which
Hmm.
Macedonia is a signatory and an inheritor of, protects ethnic minorities. I mean, in contrast, I mean, Greece doesn't recognize ethnic Macedonians. Bulgaria
Hmm.
doesn't recognize Macedonians. It's been taken to the European Court of Human Rights at least 11 to maybe 14 or 15 times by ethnic Macedonian organization in Bulgaria called Omo Pidin. There is some recognition of ethnic Macedonians in Albania, but that's patchy at best, and
Yeah.
selective. And also, Bulgaria's been able to sort of press gang and sort of pressure Albania into sort of recognizing a so-called Bulgarian minority in
Hmm.
Albania too. So, and again, Bulgaria hands out passports to anyone who claims to be Bulgarian. And there are a lot of Macedonians who've taken out Bulgarian passports. It's not because they identify as Bulgarian. It's because they want to go work in the European Union.
Hmm.
Uh,
That's an
so
entry to that. Hmm.
so it's an extraordinary sort of carrot to dangle in
Hmm.
front of people who are desperate for work. I've even heard of Kosovars, Muslim Albanians who claim to be Bulgarian and have been given a Bulgarian passport.
Hmm.
That's what I've heard.
Hmm.
It could be an urban legend, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was true. Um, a lot of people, from different countries claim other citizenships and passports to work. I mean,
Yes.
there
Yes.
are, there are Macedonians with Czech passports. There are,
Hmm.
Macedonians with Slovene passports, German passports. I mean, there are
Hmm.
Macedonians in Australia who have Australian passports.
Hmm.
I mean, people have passports because they, for for practical reasons, for being able to move from point A to point B,
Yes. Yes.
and so forth and so forth. But Bulgaria's been able to sort of use that as extraordinary sort of blackmail and
Mm.
a carrot to dangle in front of people who are desperate for work. I mean, if you're coming from a country that's been economically, squeezed and deliberately made dysfunctional, the way Macedonia has since 2001 by the US and its Albanian war. I mean, it's turned Macedonia into a de facto binational state.
Yes.
Uh, it doesn't control its own destiny. I
Yeah.
mean, there's massive corruption in the country. I mean, but corruption is across the board. It's not just one political party. It's almost everyone, right?
Yes.
And the US and the West have been happy to sort of work with corrupt politicians in Macedonia as long as they sort of deliver on what the West wants.
Yes.
But if they don't deliver, then then they're corrupt and they have to go to jail. I mean, again, it's that two-faced, hypocritical behaviour.
Yes. Yes.
And it's unfortunate that Macedonia is a small country. It's powerless and it's being pushed from all sides, pushed and pulled by
Mm.
various forces.
Mm.
The neighbours, as well as superpowers who have their own strategic interests. I mean, with Bulgaria, I mean Bulgaria has four US NATO bases.
Mm.
And Bulgaria has an outlet to the Black Sea. Now, with the war in Ukraine between Ukraine and Russia, the Black Sea is of enormous strategic interest to the US. I mean,
Sure.
Bulgaria's Black Sea ports are strategic gold real estate. Bulgaria can name its price basically, and which
Mm.
means Macedonia has to give in to Bulgarian blackmail. I mean, so it remains to be seen how the Macedonian government of Prime Minister Hristijan Mickoski, who was elected on a platform of correcting these injustices, is
Mm-hmm.
going to sort of fend off Bulgarian and EU blackmail for EU entry, in that Macedonia has to include a so-called Bulgarian minority in Macedonia's constitution. I mean, it's not about ethnic minority protection. It's about using lawfare. It's about using Macedonia's own legal systems, its constitution, to basically eat the country from within.
Mm.
It's a very similar strategy to what Nazi Germany did in Czechoslovakia. It used a so-called German minority to make enormous demands on the Czechoslovak state in the 30s, which could never be fulfilled. I mean, the Germans just kept on making all of these demands, knowing that
Mm-hmm.
even if the Czechoslovaks fulfilled all of these requirements, they could never meet them. And it's the same strategy which the West used with the right-wing ethnic Albanian neo-Nazis. They just made enormous demands. They demanded a de facto state within Macedonia that their demands could never be met. But it's deliberate. It's to make the country dysfunctional and
Yes.
stabilized so that
Yes.
it can never progress.
Mm. Mm. Um, to for somebody or people who are able to think for themselves, um, and have good intentions, they can see all these narratives that are being dished out to people, and regrettably, the Macedonian government is not really following its platform, or its promises it made to the people, which got them to where they are, um, as the party in power in Macedonia. They're still following an agenda or a narrative that is being dished out to them by others from outside. There is quite a bit of marketing happening from what I observe about what they're doing here, there, everywhere, getting money from other countries to do certain projects. But there are issues on the ground like homelessness and people not having money to buy food and look after themselves and their families. People with disabilities, there appears to be no policy or services that are specific to those sections of the society. Yet, yes, I observed recently there was some kind of a meeting where the premier or prime minister of the country was speaking to potential business people, selling them the idea of they can set up their own businesses and they're going to get some funding, etc., etc. Well, that's all fine, but where are the priorities? Are you looking after those who are homeless? And there are a lot of them who are homeless, and a lot of them who, have, as I said, can't maintain themselves.
Well, look, it should be always a balance. I mean, you need investment. You need you need business. I mean, I'm not left wing, but I'm not right wing either. I'm somewhere in the centre. But I mean, I believe in I believe in free enterprise. I believe in people should be able to set up their own businesses. But I also believe in protection for workers. People that are less fortunate people with disabilities, homeless people. So there has to be a balance. You can't go from one extreme to the other. You need a vibrant economy, but
Yes,
you've also got to be able to sort of distribute, the proceeds of a successful economy. You've got to have you've got to have some kind of equitable distribution as is sort of humanly possible. I mean, I'm not advocating communism, far from it. Like I said, I'm not left wing. But the point is, there has to be that balance. And now Macedonia has highly educated young professionals. People very good with computers technology. That they could easily set up some kind of high-tech hubs in Macedonia, labs, so forth and so forth. I mean, South Korea in the 1950s, right, was much poorer than Tito's Yugoslavia, right? Yet within 40, 50 years, South Korea is one of the most wealthiest countries on the planet. It's has an extraordinary industrial base. It's got a highly educated young sector of professionals. I mean, Macedonia will always be a small market. I mean, it's barely 2 million people. But I mean, Singapore is an island country of what, barely 4 million, right?
mm,
It's a very successful island nation, basically a city state, right?
yes,
Uh, and the look, if highly educated and highly intelligent people, I mean, you don't have to be educated to be intelligent, but highly intelligent people were to able to come together in Macedonia, sponsored by the government, and came up with strategies for strengthening the economy. And one way to do that is to diversify. I mean, you've got to be able to trade with everyone. I mean, you can't
yes,
limit yourself to to EU and then leave out the Chinese, who are an economic superpower. And the
yes,
thing is, there's like I said, there's a lot of hypocrisy because the West still trades with China. China has rare earths, rare minerals that are needed in making mobile phones and other technology, right? So people still trade with China, so even though they sort of shout out loud about banning China, people still go about business. Now, business is business. You can't stop trade. I mean, people have traded for thousands of years. Marco
yes,
Polo went from Venice, now in Italy, to China and back, and brought back silk and
mm,
noodles, which became Italian pasta, etc., etc.
Yes,
So
that's right.
trade has always gone on, and
Mm,
why you would want to pigeonhole Macedonia into into a small box and just trade with certain countries or blocks is truly absurd. Um,
mm,
like I said, there's a lot of two-faced behavior. I mean, Greece and Bulgaria can basically get away with whatever
mm,
they want in the
mm,
EU.
mm,
If Macedonia dares to sort of open its mouth, it's sort of immediately accused of being a Chinese or a Russian puppet or something.
yes,
Truly,
yes.
truly absurd because since Macedonia's independence in 1991, the US has virtually controlled Macedonia. There's never
Mm,
been
mm.
any so-called Russian or Chinese interference in Macedonia.
No, their whole pretense of being in Macedonia when the people clearly told them that they need to go home. Okay, they were not wanted in Macedonia. They simply ignored that and stayed under the pretense that it's protecting Macedonia from potential wars. What wars? That's never been proven. And this has been decades, and they're still there. So their true motive is clearly, people are aware of that true motive. And perhaps I would say that Macedonia not being able to evolve and grow as a country and as people, or being denied the opportunities to grow, could be related by these presence of a foreign country in Macedonia itself, dictating the terms, and having alliances with those who are really considered as enemies of Macedonia when it suits them. So, how do you see things for the foreseeable future? We are soon ending 2025. In a few weeks' time, we would have said goodbye to 2025, which has been a difficult year for many. And entering 2026, do you have an optimistic view on matters related to politics in the world, specifically in Macedonia? Do you see any problems there?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've gone on record a number of times. I mean, look, in my research, I've never come across any Chinese or Russian statements saying that as a worst case scenario, Macedonia could be partitioned between a greater Albania and a greater Bulgaria. But
Mm,
on the other hand, in 2017, a US expert called Professor Daniel Server was
mhm,
invited by the US Congress to present his views. And in his worst case scenario, he said that the EU or the US could militarily occupy Macedonia and then partition it
mm,
if nation state building failed. Now, the disingenuous thing in him saying that is nation state building in Macedonia has failed because the US has deliberately made it dysfunctional by
mm,
imposing right-wing Albanian neo-Nazi extremists within the country, where they are sort of very loyal to the US, to the EU, and do as they're told. Um, I'm not that optimistic in all honesty. Now, in other areas, look, the war in the Ukraine at some point has to end. I mean, whether it ends at the end of this year or next year or the following year, I don't think that war can go much longer. I mean, I think there will come a time when maybe the US and Russia will come to some kind of agreement.
yes.
Uh, and what that knock-on effect will be for Macedonia, I don't know. I mean, there could be, there could be, a spheres of influence agreement where, the US says, look to Russia, you can have Ukraine or whatever, that's your backyard, but the Balkans is ours,
Mm.
as a trade-off. Now, if that happens, then anything's possible. I mean, it could be bad, it could be good, but if you already have a template in the US Congress, which says that Macedonia could be partitioned by
Mm.
the EU or by the US. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
I've always said that the key to Macedonia's survival is to convince the US to change its foreign policy towards Macedonia. We have to
Yes.
somehow convince the US what they're doing is wrong, not so
Mm.
much to say that the US is evil, but
Mm.
to point out to the US that what they're doing is wrong, and they need to change it and give Macedonia a fair go, a fair chance. That's it.
Mm. Mm.
That's Macedonia's only chance of survival.
Mm.
Everything else is simply a waste of time. I mean,
Mm.
the key to Macedonia's survival is to convince the US to change its foreign policy. You can hold a number of conferences, you can do this and do that, but at the end of the day, that's where the battle for Macedonia has to be fought. It has to be fought in Washington, in the halls of power there.
Yes. Yes.
And unfortunately, I'm not seeing Macedonian diaspora lobby groups
Mm-hmm.
pressuring the US government to change its foreign policy. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you
The
love
same
Joe
policy
Biden
applies.
or Donald Trump or Kamala Harris
Mm.
or
Mm.
whoever. If you're concerned about Macedonia and in the US, you have to convince the US government to change its foreign policy towards Macedonia.
Yes.
I would ideally like to see, good relations between the US and Macedonia. The US is a superpower. You don't want to be on the bad side of superpowers. You want to have good relations with all superpowers. Whether it's the US or Russia or China or India, or whoever. You want to live in peace with everyone. You
Mm.
don't want to antagonize anyone. But like I said, that's where the battle has to be fought. It has to be
In
fought
Washington. Mm-hmm.
in the powers that be in the
Mm.
US.
Yes. Yes. Very interesting view, which I would share with you as well. And perhaps somebody who's listening to this program in focus with Silvana Pavlovska, talking to Sasha Uzunov, an independent journalist from Melbourne, Australia. If you are listening, perhaps you may wish to connect with Sasha and myself to discuss this further, how it can be done, what can we do to lobby or influence Washington to change its foreign policy when it comes to Macedonia. So we welcome your feedback and your contribution. I am grateful to you for your input this evening, Sasha. Thank you so much. Thank you for being part of In Focus. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you again another time. Feel free to connect again. Thank you
Thank
so
you very much.
much. Appreciate it. Have a good evening. Bye. Bye
All the
bye.
best.
Thank you. Poštovani naši slušatelji, my dear listeners, subscribers to YouTube channel In Focus with Silvana Pavlovska, this has been indeed a long interview with Professor Biljana Vankovska and also with Sasha Uzunov. I hope that you enjoyed it. And please click on the subscribe button and the like button as well, so that more people will find out about this channel or will be able to listen to interesting educational programs that I put together for you. Um, and thank you so much once again. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Until then, wishing you all the best.